feast of greed? Or will Nigeria's hunger for accountability remain unsatiated? I'm Kofi. Bartels, Politics HQ starts now. Welcome to this, dinner of sorts tonight. The EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Nigeria's anti-corruption watchdog, we hear is still questioning certain persons. Yesterday, of course, they invited and questioned, we can say detained, the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk. She is telling Nigeria's anti-corruption watchdog, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, what she knows about allegations of corruption in the handling of over 37 billion naira social intervention funds linked to the account of a contractor with the ministry during her tenure as Minister. James Okwete, the story has been in news for some days now, a couple of weeks. Well, revelations by Okwete, who had long been arrested by the operators of the EFCC, reportedly indicted Umar Farouk, also directors general in the ministry who served under her. Now, before interrogating Umar Farouk, who tried to get 3 weeks reprieve on account of a certain illness which has somehow mysteriously disappeared, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, had earlier grilled the suspended national coordinator of the National Social Investment Programs Agency, Halima Shehu, who was affirmed or confirmed by the Nigerian Senate on the same day as the EFCC's chairman, Olukoide. The agency is grilling her. Now, she, Halima Shehu, is being supervised, her agency is being supervised by the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry under Betta Edu. Halima Shehu was suspended after details emerged of her alleged involvement in the movement of about 44 billion naira in funds from her account, from her agency's accounts to private accounts in the wee days of December 2023, talking about 27th to 31st December. An action she claims, or she is said to have claimed, was undertaken because her supervising minister, Dr. Betta Edu, wanted to, as Nigerians will say, chop everything. Well, Betta Edu herself was suspended yesterday as Humanitarian Affairs Minister by President Bola Tinubu, and today was at the EFCC office to tell the agency what she knows about her alleged memo requesting the transfer of 585 million naira grant money meant to be sent to vulnerable groups in Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Ogun, and Lagos states into private accounts, which we hear is against the rules. Now, what is it with Nigeria's civil service and public service, or civil and public services and corruption? And will this corruption in these public and civil services ever end? Our guest tonight on the program, Shoma Liberus is a legal practitioner. He joins us via video link from Lagos, Nigeria. And of course, another lawyer, Obol Okoye Bodobla. He's the chairman of the defunct Special Presidential Investigation Panel. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have both of you legal eggheads on the program this night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Kofi. It's an unfolding, cacophony, or let me say melee of one allegation after the other. I want us to start from with you, Bodobla. What's your take on everything as it stands? We heard today Betta Edu was in the EFCC's headquarters to tell them what she knows. What's your overall take on what's been happening for the past 2+ weeks?
For the past 4 decades or 3 decades, Transparency International has always rated Nigeria as one of the most corrupt countries. And the APC came to power in 1985 under the mantle of change that they are going to fight corruption. But I would say that all societies, all countries have always been corrupt. We are corrupt. Even in the Bible, you read about Sodom and Gomorrah. So corruption has been part of humanity. But the problem with Nigeria is that corruption has not been really tackled. A feeble attempt was made in the last administration to fight corruption. But I will indict the last administration. But somehow they run out of steam. I was part of the team that was brought in place to fight corruption. And somehow I fell out with the powers that be because I really wanted to fight corruption. So I was pushed out. And the fight against corruption was fizzled out completely. At a point, the last administration was no longer talking about corruption. But this was a regime that came into power telling Nigerians that they want to tackle corruption. So before 2019 or after 2019, they ran out of steam. I was suspended, and Magun was also suspended. And I think between the time I was in office between 2017 and 2019, we took on corruption. I think with collaboration with Magun, we took on corruption. And there was fear in Abuja concerning my panel. There was also fear about EFCC. But after I was removed, Magun was suspended. The regime ran out of steam. So that is it. That is what we are. The consequences, the dialectical consequences of the half-hearted attempt to fight corruption, which was not fought. That is the result, is what we are seeing, and that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs has become a cesspool of corruption. Okay? And that, there are so many leakages in the system that people steal money, that people siphon money, that public servants just take Nigerians for granted. That is what we are seeing. So I am happy the message emanating from the presidency that we will not tolerate corrupt public officials. If you go to Abuja, go around Abuja, you see all the massive estates. These are all proceeds of corruption in Nigeria. Look, when I was in office,
you're saying that
Nigeria,
you're saying that while you tried to, because you had some questions to answer, if I'm not mistaken, you were invited or investigated by the EFCC or ICPC, I'm not sure. But you're saying that ICPC, fantastic. So you're saying your own experience was corruption fighting back?
Definitely.
Tell us more about that.
I took on corruption. I can mention a lot of high-profile cases that were never investigated by the anti-corruption agencies. For instance, in 2006, the government of President Obasanjo, gave out bailout loans to commercial banks in Nigeria because they wanted to recapitalize banks, and they gave us $7 billion. So when I was in office, a renowned human rights lawyer, Femi Falana, SAN, he wrote a petition asking my panel to investigate why the $7 billion have not been returned, because it was not a dash. It was not a dash with commercial banks. It was just a loan to bail them out, recapitalize, and become strong. So when we commenced the investigation, we were told that the board of CBN met and wrote off $7 billion of public funds were written off. I was investigating that, corruption, and then I was removed. And after I was removed, the investigation ceased. Nobody was interested again. Let me mention another case. There was this case of $60 billion that was taken to a bank in Texas, United States of America, and also $9 billion that was siphoned out of the country by a former national security advisor, and that was stashed in a Texas bank in the United States. We were doing that investigation too, and that investigation was Trump was stopped. Then I was removed. There was also this case of some Nigerians that were mentioned in the Panama Papers. Remember the Panama scandals?
Yes.
There was this Nigerian who was a senator. He was a military governor, so forth and so on. And he was mentioned in the Panama Papers. So because my panel did not have the superstructures or the infrastructure to carry out an investigation outside Nigeria, I went to the National Intelligence Agency and said, look, let us collaborate and do this investigation. And we came out, the National Intelligence Agency came out with the result, which was given to me to show that Nigeria has property stashed in offshore islands to the tune of 400 million pounds. I made that report available to the former Attorney General, okay? But after I was removed, nothing was done. And so many other cases. Also involving the multinational oil companies. One of them, Moby. Moby bought an oil block during the regime of President Jonathan. And, Moby was supposed to pay $2.5 billion. But they paid only $600 million. So I was trying to investigate and recover $1.9 billion for the country from Moby. Because even NNPC didn't have records that Moby paid $2.5 billion.
We want to just quickly give Liberals his chance because he hasn't spoken at all. You've said something and you've used the term corruption fought back. Liberals Choma, we want to quickly come to you. Thank you, Okoye Borobla. You've given us a lot of food for thought, a lot of content to digest tonight. But Liberals, your overview of what's been playing out so far.
What's been playing out so far, it's the fact that you cannot govern a superstructure like Nigeria from one spot. I do not believe in this idea of fighting corruption. I'm not a fan of this idea of fighting corruption. It's a cliche that government used to woo us. You do not fight corruption and expect corruption to just fold its hands and begin to look at you. Because when people corruptly enrich themselves with public funds, super rich, you don't expect them to just fold their hands. So what people do is to ensure that the structure of government or governance is not a behemoth. It's not so big that it becomes very difficult for you to supervise. You make it as small as possible. You break it down as small as possible for easy supervision, monitoring, and enforcement. And then you plug loopholes to ensure that nobody is able to take away from the system. Because this idea of why I do not believe in this fight against corruption is the fact that when you now wait for people to take from the system, they become so strong that it becomes difficult for you to even defeat them. I give you an example. You see, there is, let's say, there is a medication that once you take it, you become Superman. And that medication is not supposed to be taken by just anybody. And then somebody goes steal it and then drink it and becomes a Superman. You keep it carelessly and allow the person to take it and drinks it and becomes a Superman. And then you now say, I want to fight the person. It's impossible. Okodobla is talking about all of the monies that had gone during Obasanjo, during Jonathan, including the one that went right under him in Buhari's government, even in the first 4 years or last 4 years. The moment those monies, you don't expect a man to take, you're supposed to pay 2.5 billion for an oil well, and then you pay 600 million. Certainly, some persons are going to smile home with the balance. And those people, you expect them to fold their hands, and when you are fighting them, they become so strong that it's a practical impossibility for you to fight them. How much do you have? What structures are available to you? What governments do, or what government does in other climes to ensure that the structure of governance is so minimal and it becomes easy to monitor. I was in Miami when I was opportune to sit down with some members of the Miami International Airport who were receiving the members of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. And I was shocked when the man put a call through to our Nigerian counterparts, asking them what area of collaboration are you interested in? And the first thing that came out of the mouth of the representative from Nigeria is, okay, please really, where are the choice areas that somebody can actually buy properties in Miami? And yet, in Nigeria, it is on record that they went to Miami International Airport to collaborate with the airport to see how to improve Nigerian airport. That was under Buhari's government. So, because this money, when it becomes too available, Miami Airport, as I speak to you, is managed by the county. The mayor supervises and superintends. You have board of county commissioners. The same thing with the Miami port. The same thing with the Atlanta airport. It is not, you have the federal airport agencies, border control there, but the management of that airport, the day-to-day management of the airport, is strictly by the county. And so, with that, it becomes easy to manage and monitor every cover that goes in and every cover that goes out. But if the money is coming from the top, at the end of the day, you know, before it even gets down, you would have found different loopholes. That's what you have in Nigeria. Nigeria is run by like a local government, and the president is the local government chairman, with a lot of ungoverned territories. So these ungoverned territories, because it becomes too big for the president's eye to be everywhere, everybody takes a slice for himself. Take, for example, this Ministry of Humanitarian Resources that we're talking about. Yeah. You want to, you know, give cash back to vulnerables. How do you give cash back to vulnerables without even identifying who the vulnerables are? Yeah,
Liberal, so we'll come back to that because you've raised a very important point. I just want to, you know, move us to another aspect. You've gone there, which is fantastic. We'll come back to some things you've said, because you've talked about the fact that, you know, fighting corruption alone, if you are corrupt, I mean, just to paraphrase what you said, how can you fight corruption? But let's go to what you've talked about, which is the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. We're seeing that we have not 3 ministers, but 3 government executives. 1 minister, a former minister, and then the suspended head of a government agency, all in the hot seat for alleged misappropriation in the same ministry. Okoye Bodobla, what is it about the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs that has seen it embroiled in this recurring pattern of scandals? This is a ministry that was formed in August 2019 by former President Buhari, in whose administration you served. And if we remember the history, some of these agencies that were put together to form the ministry were under the Vice President's initiative on you know, conditional cash transfers, NPA, trader money, market money, and then all of a sudden we just heard that they're all being taken away from him, and then we had a new ministry formed. Did the Buhari administration probably take a wrong step to create a whole ministry just for humanitarian affairs? Remember the scandals that trailed the appointment or the announcement of Hajia Sadiya Omar Farouk as minister. You know, people asking what's the relationship with the former president and all that. So what is it about this ministry? And did the president take the wrong step to create a ministry for such activities?
Well, I agree with my colleague when he was trying to say that government is too big in Nigeria. Even though we are supposedly running a federal system of government, what is wrong with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is also what is wrong with NDDC, what is wrong with NPC, what is wrong with the Airport Authority of Nigeria, what is wrong with the Nigerian Ports Authority, what is wrong with NIMASA. Anywhere there is money in Nigeria, there's something wrong. And that place will not be properly managed. That place will be a cesspool of corruption and graft and maladministration. Because we love money so much in Nigeria, the problem is that President Buhari created a ministry where money will be dispensed to poor people. And definitely, if you create that kind of entity in Nigeria, you are going to have problems. Everybody will be struggling to work there. People will be struggling to become ministers, so that in 6 months, you have become just 6 months in the ministry, you have become a multi-billionaire, because there are no checks and balances. People are free to do what they like. There are so many loopholes.
I apologize. We have to take a quick break. Sorry for the interjection. Yes. But when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation, because there's a lot more to talk about. Please stay with us.
For decades, the Niger Delta oil-producing region has suffered losses from oil theft and pipeline vandalism, which has led to Nigeria losing billions of foreign exchange worth of crude. But with the engagement of Tantita Security Services, pipeline vandalism and oil theft has reduced significantly. Tantita Security Services is an internationally recognized security outfit based in Delta State. Tantita specializes in providing professional security solutions to the oil and gas industry through a strategic partnership with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPCL, with over 1,000 plus field agents, 30 plus operational and combat boats, 10 ground-to-air drones. Tantita is changing the narrative around security in the Niger Delta. Tantita Security Services, dedicated to putting an end to oil theft in the Niger Delta.
Welcome back. We're still looking at corruption in Nigeria's civil and public services. Our guests tonight, two firebrand lawyers. Libros Shoma joins us from Lagos, and of course, Okoy Oborobla also joins us as well via video link tonight, as we look at the unfolding revelations of corruption allegations in Nigeria's Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Welcome back. My name is Kofi Bartels. Before we went on a break, Obo, you were telling us about your thoughts on this Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. You were saying that the government is too big. I'll just allow you a minute or so to round off, so we can move and stick what the Liberals thinks about it as well.
Yeah, well, if you want to create a superstructure like the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, the ministry is supposed to take care of, people who are displaced by internal conflicts, take care of refugees from international, countries bordering Nigeria, like Cameroon. There are a lot of Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria. And you also want to take care of people who are affected by conflicts within Nigeria, in Nigeria, local government, in our local government areas, in our states. And then you have to pick people who have integrity, who are experienced, who are honest, because they are going to handle tons and tons of money. So that is the mistake that the former regime made, and which continue to this regime. I would think that if you want somebody to man the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, you have to bring somebody who has integrity, somebody who believes in Nigeria, somebody who is passionate, okay, somebody who will not, touch the monies that have been made available to her or him to dispense to poor Nigerians, to vulnerable Nigerians. So that is where the government went wrong.
Okay. Back to you, Libros. Your thoughts on this ministry. Was it a wrong step, wrong move by Mr. President? Why do we keep having such scandals popping up every now and then? We have billions of naira, involved.
Kofi, typical of Nigeria, we take the wrong step even before we plan. this, what do you call it, conditional cash transfer, you know, it's a United Nations interventionist program for the vulnerable. It succeeded in Lesotho, it's succeeding in South Africa. It's something they're also studying in Malawi, you know, and some other country. But the difference here is the fact that you don't just give out money in a country like Nigeria, like I said, that is just large with a lot of ungoverned territories, without actually having the parameters or the criteria for doling out those money. You are giving out money to poor people. What are the indices for determining vulnerable, poor? And who are these poor people? I expect what other societies, what they do in other societies, which we have also studied, is the first thing the government does is to have a capturing of everybody. And then, after capturing all of those people, you now determine, you know, you create a baseline for vulnerability. And that baseline will give you the numbers of those people who are already vulnerable. No matter how poor, no matter how, you know, klepto you are, how klepto you are, it becomes very difficult for you to dip your hand in that fund because the figures are there, the structures are there. All you just need to do is to supervise the disbursement because by anyway, already there will be consultants to do the disbursement, and by a click of the finger, Kofi can sit down, Okonobla can sit down somewhere, Liberal Sushoman can sit down somewhere, and we'll be able to assess the beneficiaries with names, numbers, and biometrics. Look at INEC registration, for example. We register INEC, we register voters in every part of the country. You roll out direct data capturing machines. We are doing NIMSI. We are doing, international passport. We are doing, also, SIM card registration. But there is no synergy between all of this registration. We are also doing biometric, BVN. But there is no synergy between all of this registration to create a data.
But yes.
So now say from this data, how do we determine?
But Liberals, if I may come
because,
in, yes.
Quickly, Kofi, quickly. Because the government wants to create opportunity for chopping. That's why government will leave that major aspect of what they ought to do first.
But Liberals, if I may come in, I had the opportunity to speak to interview Joe Abuku from one of the agencies under the ministry last year, when you know there was some announcement by the then Minister of Finance. Remember the Minister of Finance? That's someone too that
yes,
the Nigerians may, I don't know, maybe a name may pop up in the future. You know, I do not know, but remember they announced, okay, when they said, oh, they want to end subsidy, okay, they now announced they want to give money
share.
And
then the area was going to, Kofi, that's the area I was going to,
okay.
That the minister, the former Minister for Finance said they have a data of 50 million vulnerable Nigerians.
Yes.
So, as I speak to you, till date, nobody has seen that data.
Okay, Liberals, I was about to say, I have it on reliable, and then before the elections, and at that time, of course, Nigerians did the maths and realized that the money they were going to spend for poor vulnerable Nigerians was more than what they would have spent on subsidy. But later they had a review and they changed the figures. But
that money that was borrowed, first and foremost, where did it go to? The question is, I'm not saying, Kofi, wait. The idea of a humanitarian ministry in itself is not a wrong idea in a society like ours. The problem is the intention to, like Okonobla has said, the intention to create that fund for chopping. So what now happens? The ministry says they have a data. How come, if the Minister of Finance has a data, how come Haja Sadia, the former Minister for Humanitarian Disaster, didn't have that data to share money and was sharing money on top of the table? And also, how come that data is not available to the current minister, that she's employing consultants to also gather data for her? What that tells you, the only answer that can give you is that there is no data. What you just have is a discretionary sharing where people stuff in names of brothers. And like Okonobla has said, the moment you are working in that ministry, in 6 months, you become rich because you stuff in names of brothers, sisters, relations, who as vulnerable, and you collect the money without accounting to anybody. That is why it is like, oh, this ministry is not necessary. It is. And also, this is not a ministry you create at the national level. Such ministry ordinarily should be at local government level. Kofi, as far back as 2003, 2004, in England, I have friends who every Tuesday go to post office to queue up to collect their benefits. I never heard for one day that somebody misappropriated the fund or that somebody just went at the
moment. All right, Libros, I just want to put it to you and to Okoyebo Bonobla that yes, we know that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs began to become more vocal about giving 1.9 million vulnerable Nigerians, in quote, 5,000 naira monthly, closer to the exit of the administration. But let's not go into that. I have it on account that the United Nations actually went, in partnership with the federal government, to the different states. And for instance, in Lagos State, they went to different LCDAs and local government areas. They used the local government's system and then the community development associations, the CDAs or CDCs, whichever it's called in Lagos, for instance, to find out who are the poor people in, let's say, Koshofe local government area. Who are the poor people if they go to Cross River State in Obanliku local government area? Who are the poor people in Uyo local government area in Akwa Ibom? Who are the poor people in Ikore local government? So they had to reach out to these people, and then they verified that these persons actually exist and their names were included in the list. But, of course, like you have said, what happened? Were they poor forever? Did they get, we don't know who they are. And some people said some poor persons came out and said never got on that list. But we had only 1.9 million. Now, Better Edu came in and discovered last year that you had ghost workers or ghost people in the list. For instance, NPower, you had ghost names. They're people who they couldn't verify, they didn't know. And then she decided to rejig, to rework the list and to work on it. In the process of all that, if you remember, Better Edu discovered that some of the consultants and contractors of the ministry had refused to give beneficiaries of NPower their money to the tune of over 10 billion naira. And they were able to recover about that 10 billion naira from some of the contractors or consultants whom, I don't know why, government gives money to do the distribution to the beneficiaries. 10 billion naira. And some will say, and I come back to you, Bo, some will say that what you suffered, Better may not be right in her approach, to things as far as due process is concerned. But some of your experience may be what she's going to do. Do you feel, and I know I've asked you this question before, do you feel that in all of Better's wrongdoing, that somewhere, just maybe somewhere in all of this, that some interests are not happy that she was able to recover monies from these contractors, over 10 billion naira, that maybe some interests are not happy that she reported Halima Shehu to AFCC over that 44 billion naira. There may be some interests are not happy that she looked into the books of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and discovered that the predecessor, may have been some money laundering with the Okwete and reported Okwete to the AFCC, and he ratted out Hajia Sadia. So is there something, I'm not saying Better is innocent, but is there something somewhere in all of this that is happening to her because of what she has attempted to do, just like happened to you? I'm just asking.
It may be in the process to clean up the system. She was confronted, she was grappled with, she stepped on very powerful tools. And there's this, pushback, as my little friend was saying, Oshoma, that, when people who have taken money are confronted, they always fight back because they don't want to return back what they have taken. So I had that experience of heavy fighting from those I was after. And unfortunately, the system that appointed me couldn't protect me. Even when I was, threatening to resign, I was invited. I was given some measure of confidence. So we are going to protect you. When the hawks within the administration came after me, they were working in concert with patrons of corruption. I was not protected. I became a victim. So it may be in Nigeria, we have seen it. Even President Buhari suffered it when he was military head of state. When he wanted to confront corruption, corruption came after him. He was arrested. He was toppled. I thought somebody with that experience would have protected those he appointed to be in the forefront in the fight against corruption. I became vulnerable. Magnum became vulnerable. So it may be better do is also becoming a victim of what the system she was trying to clean up. But be that as it may, well, in the process, she got her hands, somewhere because of what we have been, all the allegations that have been leveled against her. But we will know from the investigation that the president has ordered. And I'm happy the president has also, ordered the Minister of Finance to carry out a comprehensive review of the financial system of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. But our country is a difficult country.
Okay.
Whenever you want to change the system, everybody will come after you. But if there's the willpower by the leadership, they can always protect those they have been appointed to do the work they have been given. And when they are confronted by corrupt people, they should have a way to shield them, from being, swept away by this very powerful.
Obo, thank you so much. Because of time, I want to move quickly to the next few questions. Yes, Obo, thank you. I want to just quickly, because of time, bring Libros in now. Libros, Okwete, the contractor, spilled the beans. His revelations seem to be quite key to what's going on, but that's because someone went in there and said, hey, EFCC, see what's going on. Do you feel that somewhere, I'm not saying better as innocent, but do you feel that somewhere in all of this, because we have a certain 37 billion naira that was moved into the account of a contractor. He's
44. 44.
No. The first one, I'm talking about Umar Farouk's own.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, sorry.
37.1.
Yeah, okay, 37.1 billion naira. Yeah, money laundering allegation. That money actually left government coffers to a contractor, and they can't account for it. You have 44 billion naira that was moved between 27th of December and 31st December from government accounts to private accounts with the help of a director of finance in the ministry or the agency. And then you have a certain 585 plus million naira that was never moved. It's still in government coffers. Someone wrote a paper and said, please move this money to this account. Are Nigerians in danger of being distracted? Is there something at play here? Because that's something that is of concern to me, of being distracted by better this issue, that we lose focus of the bigger fish.
Kofi, it is easy to use 560 something million to chase 37.1 and 44 billion, and then you forget the 37 and the 44, and then you are fixated on the one that was not moved. But like we say in law, Oko Nobla can bear me witness, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. I remember the case of a one-time minister of power in Nigeria who was also trying to clean up the Ministry of Power and make Nigeria self-sufficient in terms of power generation. And at the end of the day, there was some allegation of graft against him, and he was excused. Batnaj. You also remember the case of Dundudu Elumelu panel on power. And at the end of the day, after all investigation, how some big names, were awarded contract despite companies non-existent. And then, there was a banana pill thrown at him and he slipped. The case of Obla that he has also copiously cited. But on this case of Beta, where the banana peel is, she might have meant well. She might have meant well. You come in, you identify all of the lapses and all of the loopholes. And the question is, the moment you identify those lapses, those loopholes, you know, like the old slogan, corruption will always fight back. He who comes to equity must keep himself above boards. And like I said consistently, the first step should have been, how do we ensure that we have a register and criteria for determining vulnerability, who is vulnerable? Let's first create that register. Instead of requesting movement of money for distribution when you have not even determined who is vulnerable. That means you are committing the same foul that you have identified in the system. You identified that people were non-existent. Now you want to share money for people also that are non-existent. You want to pay contractors in such questionable ways also. And that's why, for me, we shouldn't, lose focus of the remaining 37 billion and the 44 billion. While, and that's why I like the fact that the president has said, let there be a thorough investigation. Let also the Ministry of Finance, do a forensic audit of all of these. That's the first thing that ought to have been done in the first place.
Okay, yes. Very quickly, but do you think
how to share money?
Yeah, Liberals, do you think? Because what stops the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission? What stops the Ministry of Finance? What stops because the president formed a sort of a peer review performance monitoring department? What stops even the Accountant General? I was told, and of course by Obo, who's on the program with us tonight, some days ago, that going by the regulations, they finished the Accountant General has to make some approvals. And of course, she came out to say that she didn't approve this 585 leaving government accounts, TSA, to private accounts. But somebody somewhere approved the money or knew that money was moving from government coffers to private coffers for the 37.1 and the 44 billion. Who approved it? So the president ordered the investigation of Beta. He ordered the investigation of Halima. Should these agencies be waiting for the president to say, oh, go and investigate that person, then they move? What do you make of that?
No, Kofi, that's why, for me, I think that, like I said, I started this program by saying that the first thing government ought to have done before even creating the Ministry for Humanitarian Disaster Management would have been to first have a data of who is the vulnerable, who are the vulnerable, and what are the criteria. You set criteria for determining vulnerability. When you have all of that, you synergize all of your SIM card registration, your NIMC registration, your BVN. If it is difficult for you to begin to create new data, you first and foremost create all of those data before even setting up the ministry in the first place. But not doing that, ministers came, they didn't do all of that. And so a new minister also came down and said, I have identified the fact that there are lapses. The moment you identify those lapses, the first step should be, that is where Beta Edu also faltered. The first thing to do would have been, how do we ensure that we do the right thing? And not to move money to private accounts.
Okay.
Whether the memo had been, whether the money had been moved or not. The fact that you identify these faults and you are committing the same fault, it's why people are talking about it.
Okay, very quickly, Liberals.
Monies were shared.
Yes. Yeah, sorry to interject. I'm just sorry because of time.
Sorry, quickly, let me round up. You identify the fact that money was shared in questionable circumstances and you recovered those money. Now also, you are moving money to a private account. So those people that you are fighting, that are so superpower, that have money to fight you back, all they are looking for is just a little force and they'll push you down the cliff.
Liberals, you mentioned Bartels Naji. I want to go to Obolo or Koyobodobla. Olububi Tunji just seems to be a star minister. He has come out to publicly accept that he has a connection. Money amounting to the tune of hundreds of millions of naira from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs under, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The president didn't suspend him. He summoned him. Should Mr. President suspend Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo despite his seeming sterling performance in making sure Nigerians can get their passports on the website? Apply.
I think it should be suspended. He has been implicated by the revelation that his company won a contract of $485 million to clean up the National Social Investment Register that was initiated by Minister Betta Edu. And we have read on social media that he has a very, cordial relationship with Minister Betta Edu. He has admitted that that company belongs to him, though he's told us that he left that company in 2019. But he also revealed that he's a shareholder in that company, and the wife is managing that company. So there is this conflict of interest I can see. And the Code of Conduct provisions of the Constitution forbids conflict of interest. It says no public officer should put himself in a
So we are out of time. Obo, you're saying that based on the contents of the Code of Conduct for public officers or public servants as contained or ensuring the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, President Tinubu ought to suspend Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo. That's what you're saying?
Yes. That is my position, because he has been mentioned and he has...
We have to go. Should Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo be suspended?
No. You know why I'm not in agreement? Obla said something just now, that when the Hawks came after him, the government didn't protect him. When the Hawks came after him. This matter we should not be in a hurry to push people down the cliff without a thorough investigation. So that you don't play to the gallery and sacrifice your best hands under questionable circumstances.
But the procedure, and I'm sure Obo will agree because he informed me of that. The procedure in government is that if such a question arises, you will proceed on suspension while investigation is carried out.
The investigation we're talking about has nothing to do with the ministry.
Okay, we have to go.
Investigation has not.
We have to go. Thank you so much, Libros Oshoma, Obol Okoye Bonobla, legal practitioners. It's been amazing having you. Wish you had more time, but we don't have that luxury. So thank you so very kindly for being our guests tonight. And that's the size of a package right here on Politics HQ. Return tomorrow with more conversations on the political issues that Nigerians are interested in. My name is Kofi Bartels. Good night.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeat and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every raise, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Something new is about to hit your imagination of TV. A brand new sundial with StarTime's inbuilt technology. New TV innovation